For pure numbers, these are exhilarating times for Indians. Our nation completes 75 years of independence. Our economy is now the fifth largest in the world, overtaking that of our former coloniser, the UK. And Gautam Adani is now the third richest man in the world, only behind Elon Musk and Bernard Arnault, and ahead of Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. 75 years, fifth largest GDP, home to the third richest man on the planet. So how do you do as an Indian citizen? Plain numbers are one thing, numbers put in context are another. There are multiple aspects to India's economy marching on, overtaking one country after another. In fact, India's GDP size has grown from 11th rank in the world to 5th rank over the last decade, showing steady progress. But GDP size and rank make sense only when put in context. Number one, the historical context. Now that we are 5th in the world, it would be good to look at our GDP journey over the last so many decades. In 1950, we were ranked 6th in GDP. 20 years later, in 1970, we had gone down to the 9th place. Another 20 years later, in 1990, we were as low as 12th. Another 20 years later, in 2010, we were back to 9th. In 2020, we had come a full circle back to 6th. And now we are 5th. In other words, essentially, we are where we were about 75 years earlier. That's a lot of hard work and toil to get back to square one. 2. The per capita context. Now this is the proof of the pudding. Plain GDP numbers have little meaning unless they are connected to the populations of the respective nations. In other words, per capita GDP. Plain GDP numbers would show US at the top with a 19 trillion economy, followed by China with a 12 trillion economy, and then Japan with 4.87, Germany 3.69, India 2.65, and the UK 2.64. But China and India have by far the largest populations in the world. So on per capita GDP, they figure very low among the world countries. Even in the G20 group, China comes in only at 12th position in per capita GDP with a per capita GDP of $14,100. And India comes last, at the 20th place with a per capita GDP of $2,500. Take a look at some of the GDP numbers per capita of the G20 nations. The US $76,000, Australia $67,500, Canada $57,400, the UK $49,800, China $14,100, Indonesia $4,700, and India at 20th place $2,500. Which means even the 19th placed Indonesia has a per capita GDP which is nearly double that of India's. 3. The currency context. There's one statistic that is very easy to remember about the Indian currency. Its fall from the time of independence in 1947 to 2022. At the time of independence, it was 4 rupees to a dollar. Over the next 75 years, the rupee has lost 75 rupees, falling from 4 to a dollar in 1947 to 79 to a dollar in 2022, or losing 75 rupees in 75 years. 4. The income context. Our per capita income at the time of independence was around $60, which has now grown to $2,200 75 years later. But the point to note is that, relative to other countries of the world, we are at the same place where we were 75 years earlier. Ratin Roy, Managing Director of the London-based Overseas Development Institute, put it rather bluntly last week when he said, India was getting bigger but not richer. He wrote in the Business Standard, Bangladesh as a country is much poorer than India, but its citizens are richer. The citizens of the UK with a per capita income of $43,000 are the 4th richest in the G20. They can save and or consume 23 times more than Indian citizens. So when does the Indian citizen get richer? That takes us to the billionaire context. Whether you'll smile about this or not, there are 2 Indians on the list of the world's top 10 richest. And the list goes Elon Musk, Bernard Arnault and family, Gautam Adani and family, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Larry Ellison, Mukesh Ambani, Larry Page, and Sergey Brin. It's not just about Adani or Ambani. India seems to be producing billionaires by the dozen these days. Over the last one decade, between 2011 and 2021, the number of our billionaires has gone up from 55 to 140, and their combined wealth has moved up from $246 billion to $596 billion. So when does the average Indian get rich? Author, columnist and investor Richest Sharma recently said, it will take 18 years for India's per capita income to double from $2,200 to $4,400. Assuming his forecast comes true, 18 years later, India's per capita income will be $4,400, roughly 10% of what UK's per capita income is today. In other words, 18 years later, an average Indian would be 1/10 as rich as a Brit is today. Perhaps this is the reason why tens of thousands of Indian youth are migrating to the UK today, rather than wait 18 years to be 1/10 as rich as a Brit. This is not to forget some of our significant achievements, like lifting 270 million people out of poverty between 2005 and 2016. But sadly, the overall context for the per capita GDP for the average Indian, that is not too bright. While we wait these 18 years for India's per capita income to double, we will have some milestones to applaud, like our GDP overtaking more countries and perhaps somebody from India becoming the richest person on earth. So how do you feel as India's GDP swells and India produces billionaires by the dozen? If you don't feel you're rising with the tide, please have the patience to wait 18 years to feel some change. Surely, India's GDP is going to get bigger, though you may not be richer. This episode of Geometric View salutes two sportsmen, a legend who's retiring this week and a teenager who made his debut this week. Roger Federer, tennis legend, winner of 20 Grand Slam titles, is retiring from competitive tennis this week. 310 weeks as the world number one, 103 ATP singles titles, but most of all, a sportsman worthy to be called so.
Of all the gifts that tennis has given me over the years, the greatest, without a doubt, has been the people I've met along the way. My friends, my competitors, and most of all the fans who give the sport its life.
And in comes a very young man born in 2007, all of 15 years, with a lot of promise to be a soccer star of the future. This week, Ethan Vaneri became the youngest ever English Premier League football player at 15 years and 181 days when he came onto the field for Arsenal against Brentford in the 90th minute of the game. He came in during stoppage time, but who knows, this midfielder may just be unstoppable. Farewell Federer, welcome Vaneri. And I leave you with a stunning creative that Kerala Tourism used to pay tribute to Roger Federer.